So the differences from the past and today is that, we definitely acquired these technology into our lives, and technology has been designed so that we can basically live our lives more efficiently and useful depending on what our needs are and our wants are. I don't know entirely if it's if I can say if it's entirely productive, whether technology, the question is, how would our life be if we didn't have email today? I remember when I went to college, I didn't have email, but I had other means of communicating with people, and that's perhaps more personal communication, more physical, person to person, and perhaps sometimes, although today you can, use technology to communicate in a very efficient, fast way and make sure everyone's on the same ground, at the same time, you don't know if really people are understanding what you're trying to communicate. Because, 15 years ago, when you don't have that type of communication like email, you know exactly that, you know what you have to do, you know how the other person is feeling when you're talking to them, you take more advantage of that point in space of trying to deliver a message and make sure that everything is understood in both ways, right?
But I think there's two important differences. And people have been gathering around the watering hole at the pub and so on and so forth, and talking to friends and trusting friends of friends and so on and so forth. The old idea that you'd send a letter of introduction through a friend is basically the rudiments of social networking. But again, once it becomes a mediated process through computers, a couple of things change, and I think they change quite radically. One thing that changes is you have multiple publics. That is, I have a Facebook page, okay? There's a public I know about, which are my friends, and they see what I'm doing, at least what I'm doing online, and we communicate about those things. We post on each other's walls and so on and so forth. And in that way, again, it's not that different from going to the pub. It's just a virtual pub. It doesn't exist in any space. And it's timeless. That is, I can post something at 3 in the morning, and my friend can actually see it at 5, 5 the next evening and respond to it, okay? But essentially, it's not that different. But there's also another public, which is an anonymous public I never see, okay? And that's changing. It's like, that's the equivalent would be, I have my pub, but it has glass walls or one-way mirrors, and you have the rest of the world passing around this pub, listening to and seeing the intimate conversations I have with my friends. And I think that's radically different. And so when I present myself to my friends on Facebook, or when a teenager presents herself on MySpace, they're not just presenting themselves and grooming themselves for their friends that they see, but also presenting and performing for an unknown world, a mass anonymous world. So I think that's fundamentally different, and makes us think about performance and performance in our life, in all sectors of our life being performed. In other words, it doesn't happen to me because I'm older, but with my students, they know if they go to a party, that the pictures from that party are going to show up on MySpace or Facebook or Flickr or someplace the next day. And so inherently, that ends up changes how they end up thinking about themselves. That is, they think of themselves and what they do in terms of performance, in terms of the possibility of being captured. Even if it's not on the front of their minds, even if their behavior doesn't seem to change, it's impossible to not know and not think that this could be communicated to everyone, by parents, by boss, and someone in Thailand.
I think we had a period of a century or so from during the 20th century. We had this period of mass culture, and there's still going to be mass. There's still going to be a global culture. There's still going to be, Star Wars Boy is still going to be recognizable not just in the U.S. but around the world as kind of a video that a large number of people have seen. So you're still going to have those kind of global ideas that are shared, but I think we are returning to a new kind of form of community. And so that's not a new thing. The way it's implemented is going to be new, as kind of distanced and having friends all over the world instead of within your local community. But the ideals of it, the values of it, of participation, of autonomy, of creativity, of individuality, those are very old-fashioned kinds of ideas. And so I think we're seeing a return to some of those values and a way to actually implement them in a rich way rather than kind of this collapse towards voting. I mean, I think really what we're doing is we're moving away from voting and towards democracy, and I think that's a good thing.
On my Facebook page, for example, it has the groups that I like and the causes that I like. What does it mean to be part of a group on Facebook? What do I do? Okay, it means that I've agreed to be part of this group, but there's very little that's asked of me. What's asked of me is usually joining, that is, signaling to others that I've joined a group, and perhaps maybe discussing with others and so on and so forth, online and so on. I guess what I'm trying to get at here is within the world of social networking, within the world of mediated communication, your act is communicative.